Okay, this is old electronics fan, and this is a tag sale find. Okay, well, I thought this little unit was all set to go, all happy. Unfortunately, that appears not to be the case. It distorts when you turn the volume up above a certain point. And it's not distorting because it's up to an uncomfortably high listening volume, although maybe on the edge, but it's distorting much sooner than it should. So I started checking capacitors, and I found a bunch that aren't that happy. Now, one of the things I do, and maybe I can get you to see this. I don't know. Get this out of here. One of the things I do is I use a flashlight, and I try to identify. And I figured out that these two right here are the ones that I want to check. So, my finger right there, put this back in the screen, and we're going to test and see. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, 76 ohms. That doesn't look very good to me. And one of the things I am going to do, and one of the things I do after the fact, is I check it out of circuit. But so far, my tester's been doing fine, showing me what. So I'm looking at that right there. So hopefully, I didn't screw up. It's entirely too easy to do that, unfortunately. Come on. Alright, so there we are. So let's find out, am I in the right spot to begin with? Yes, I am. Come on. Let's go. There. And one of the things I try to make sure of is I hold it just exactly the way I took it out, and I make note of where the common lead is. In this case, it's facing downward. So let's check this again. Step in the screen. There. There we are. Let's go. Let go. There. And yeah, this is saying 68 ohms. And that's not ideal. I have another one over here that I think is decent. Not so much. That's not great. I mean, it could work, but it's not great. So let's try this one. I'm running out of these because I thought I had a bunch of these, and there's many. Okay, so this is 1.9. So that's a whole lot happier. So I have to remember this goes down. These are 50 volt, 1 microfarad capacitors. And so far every one of those I've tested is way out. This has a chart. Oh, it's actually focusing. Anyway, that gives you the basic idea. Now it also gives you helpful things like if it's below a certain microfarad, then it should be okay. If this reading is whatever. And it's just a guideline. And I am I always lean toward what I consider to be the better numbers, which is lower resistance. Alright, we'll throw some light on there. Yeah. Yeah, right there. Nothing worse than just looking at something not being able to see. Alright, now, so I haven't checked the actual specs for this brand capacitor for that value, which would probably be a good idea. But I don't think that's a good thing. Let's see. There we are. Okay, now, see if I think you can see this. All right. Remember, move the opposite. I think you can see on the bottom. It says reference for 25 volt cap. This one happens to be a 50 ohm cap, a volt cap, and 50 volt caps tend to have slightly higher. Actually, no, I take that back. If you compare a 50 volt cap to, well, 35 volt cap to a 63 volt, this is on the 10 microfarad scale. The 35 volt is 3.2 and the 63 volt is 2.4. So if you kind of split the difference, maybe 2.8, somewhere in there, is what you might expect. And that's on 10 microfarad, and as you go down to microfarad, the number goes up. But here's the thing. That is way beyond what I would consider acceptable. Even though the hint says to me, that's probably okay. I'm thinking not so much. Alright, now this is also a 1 microfarad, and we're glaring. Here we are. This is a 1 microfarad 50 volt, the same as the other one. This one's only 7 ohms, 7.7. The ones that I've been putting in here are can't do two things at once apparently, are much lower resistance. Here's one that I kind of set aside as being so-so. I don't remember what this measured, so let's check this one out. So this is 3 ohms, so this would definitely be okay, I think, to use. And then I have another one here. Since I'm running out of these, I may go hunting for more. These were poles from stuff that had been abused. So that one's okay. It certainly seems alright. And certainly better than what I'm taking out of here. 76 ohms seems a little high. Even 7 ohms seems a little high. So all 3 of these would be acceptable. I think I'm going to go hunting to see if I have any that are any better than this. Yeah. But I could probably use any one of these 3. And it looks like I'm going to need it. For some reason, all of the 1 microfarads in this thing are testing bad. I was kind of wondering about that, but the fact that the ones I had on hand were testing so much lower, around 1 or 2 volts, 3 volts to the max, leads me to believe that the ones that are in here are indeed toast. So I'm going to probably continue on with this, and I won't bore you with swapping all of those, but I just did want to show you a little bit of what I'm finding with this. A lot of the other capacitors that I've checked were fine. I think I replaced, let's see, a 0.47. There's a 0.47 that I replaced in here. That didn't seem all that happy either, and unfortunately, I don't know that I have any more of those. There's another 4.7. Another 4.7. There's 3 more. 3, 4. Oh, that's 1. I think that's a 1. Yes. And that looks like a 1. No, 4.7s. So 4.7. I've already replaced one of those. So those might be a little shaky. What else do we have in here? Questionable. 4.7s. So I'm going to check the 4.7s and the ones. Actually, I'm going to check them all, but those are the ones I'm focusing on particularly. I have a 10 mic 16 volt, or mic, 10 mic 16 volt over here. And there's another one of those. And another one of the 4.7s. What are you? 4.7. I'm going to check those. I know I've had to replace one of them, so. And we'll come back and see where I'm at in terms of replacing capacitors. Like I said, for some reason, all the 1 microfarads have tested lousy. And this little tool I just got, because I thought it would be much easier to test things in circuit, if at all possible. And that's definitely been nice. It has made it much easier. This is older circuitry, and while it's silk screened on the top, it tells you the size, you know, what's there. And you can see the silk screen on the top side. On newer circuit boards, they also silk screen them on the bottom, so you can find the component you're hunting for. With these, not so much. So I've been using my flashlight trick and using references to, and finding, you know, okay, this is here, I can find that hole, I can find this. And then I know that, you know, I've got a capacitor over here. And I look at the orientation if I can see it. Sometimes you can't. But then I look for, okay, there's the ground marking right there, which probably means that this is oriented this way. So I use all the tricks at my disposal to try to figure out what component, where the component is and where the leads are. And even then, sometimes it's not good. And occasionally I have to resort to using my soldering iron to test, okay, have I found the capacitor or not? Apply a little heat, see if the lead moves or not, and if not, then you know you've missed it. So it's a little bit challenging, but it's been okay. So right now I've replaced this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one in here. And I'm betting, at least these, I think this one's a 4, that's a 1, I think that's a 1. There might be another one over here. I think all 3 of those will have to go bye-bye, and that will probably clean out my stock of 1s. I have to go look and see if I have any more hiding somewhere. Yeah, these are 50 volt. I guess pay attention to that because that's what I'm taking out is 50 volt. Yes. Yeah, you got to pay attention to that. 100 volt. Okay. So these are indeed 1s and 50s. All right. So anyway, I thought I'd gotten away because I got this thing for nothing basically, and I thought, well, heck, all I have to do is clean the controls and I'm good to go. But yeah, not so much. Although I'm still kind of amazed. I've put another tape through this 8-track player and it works wonderful. I didn't have to do anything to this. I think I did a little bit of lubrication on a few things, just kind of preemptive to prevent it from acting up later on, but the selection solenoid, which controls what track you're on, works like a charm. It doesn't skip, it doesn't hang, it just plain works. So, as cheap as this is, it's surprising me, it's working. So I'll probably be back. I wanted to show what was going on. Now, what I've done here is I have load resistors on each of the speakers, and I've taken this as a homemade signal tracer, passive signal tracer for RF and AF. And what I'm doing is this allows me to feed signal into, where are you? Ah, there we are. This is my Realistic amplifier. I have no idea where I got this or when. But what this allows me to do is I can listen to the distortion I'm experiencing using this, while at the same time keeping the volume down to where it's not assaulting my eardrums. Now this, because this hits, well, I'll show you.
All the names of people, not all the names, some of the names, Noah, of people who have given. There were 2,668 gifts. We couldn't thank everybody on air, but we are trying our best.
I think you can hear that.
Your support today.
I'm trying
you are providing 66,700 meals.
It seems to be both channels, but let me just check that out.
In VPR, a match made in Vermont. I love
so
it.
You can hear.
It can be a little like heaven. I'm just saying. I may be biased, and
at half volume, you can see that it is distorting. Get this disconnected because I don't need you anymore. I was experimenting a little bit before I fired this up, and decided this wasn't going to work. All right. So. Let's see. All right, so both channels are doing this, and let's see. I want to go to out of here. I hope I can do this without breaking anything. All right. Well, let's see here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so, let's see.
Thank you for being a reliable
Okay.
source of news,
So,
thought-provoking programming, and entertainment all in one stop. I'm a lifelong listener and happy to add my monthly contribution today to help support the program.
one of the problems I have, I should just mention this.
VPR into joining in on.
This is the circuit diagram I have, and I can't find anything on this thing anywhere. Even when this was printed, it was not entirely helpful. This is kind of a plastic material, and when they printed it, some of the printing blurred. So even using, all right, this is, I think, an 8X. What are you? Yeah, this has an 8X magnifying glass, and then if I really want to go crazy, I have it's almost like a microscope. And so I can get on into this really close and really, I can really see what was originally printed. And in some cases, there's no way in the world you're going to read it because it's just a blur. So I've been trying to use this to figure out where things are and so on, with limited success. But anyway, let's see. Let's see here. Okay, I'm poking here around here. I want to see. Now, it's interesting because I thought when I originally tested this that I was getting distortion here.
Another half hour of All Things Considered just ahead, and news headlines coming up next at 6 o'clock.
Okay, let's see here.
Joe Biden introduced his economic team today, including former Fed Chair Janet Yellen, who he plans to nominate as Treasury Secretary. NPR's Tamara Keith reports Biden's pick for budget director.
So that is
pushback
distorting.
from both the left.
So that's
near a tangent,
So that is distorting on this transistor. Let's see, which one are you? And you are, well, let's disconnect you for a minute. Okay, Q11. So we've got two transistors, Q11 and Q12, and they're both in the circuit right close to the volume control, and I believe they both have one of these 4.5 microfarad electrolytics, and let me see. Let me go back to that other transistor because this one is getting distortion out of. Alright, let's go here.
Say they've reached the framework for a coronavirus relief deal. They announced today the outlines of a
That
tentative
doesn't seem
$908 billion coronavirus relief
interesting.
measure that, among other things, would include an extension of payroll protection meant to help small business.
Okay,
But
that
Virginia Senator Joe
should be
Manchin says
these
lawmakers intend to
controls
pass
because
the bill
they're
before
not
the end of the
affecting
current
anything.
session.
We're going to,
Alright, let's see here.
for one reason or another, we're not blaming anybody for why they haven't come to an agreement. You know, it wasn't enough, it was too much, whatever. We know what's necessary right now in a
interesting.
timely fashion.
It's still not clear, despite a flurry of activity in Washington,
Well,
whether it would lead to real
that's interesting.
progress, though.
Why am I not getting distortion on this one? Alright.
Measures how
Oh, there it is.
been learned. He said many have not been as bad as some had feared. But NPR's Corey Turner says
Yeah,
there's
it is.
also a warning.
The report is from the not-for-profit NWEA, the group behind the MAP growth test. That's a low-stakes test.
So I am getting distortion on both of those. The volume level is about 3/4 volume before I hear it here. When I was checking it at the speakers, it was half volume. So the only thing I can figure is that it's amplifying distortion, and by the time it gets out to the speakers, it shows up at the lower volume. So my thought is that I need to see if I can do a quick check on these capacitors, which I think I did, but it's been a while. I had to order, like I said, I did order new capacitors, so I think I'm going to get rid of that. If that's going to be annoying, moving this around with this still sort of half connected. So I did try this with speakers attached, just to make sure that I was hearing the distortion through the speakers, and I was indeed. Alright, come on you. Alright. Okay. Alright, so I'll get that out of here. So I've got these two. Let's see here. What? Alright, I'm going to disconnect that for a moment. That way I run less of a risk of doing bad things to stuff, I think. Now, well, I think I need more light. I'm hoping this will also help me see where things are. Let's see. So I've got one here. Ah, that's not where I thought it was, right there. Is that right? That sure looks like it. Alright, so it looks like that one is there. And then, let's see, where's the other one? That goes over there. I can find out. Let's do this. Alright. Now I'm probably going at this wrong end around, but let's see here. Alright, so go there. And okay, so this is going to one side of the balance control, looks like. And okay, so that is there. let's go back to the other end. See if I can find it again. Oh. Okay, so let's see. If I can remember right where I just was connected. Let's see here. Alright, so I've got you. Alright. So that goes there, and then the other one is here. Okay. Alright. Okay, so here. I'm just double checking because I want to get the right spot when I go to test. Alright, from here and there. Alright, now, so one thing I do want to do is just make sure there's not much, I doubt there's any real voltage on that, but we'll make sure. I'm going to short across that and fire this thing up and see what it can tell me. Alright, and we're going to zero this baby and see. 0. Zero, please. Okay, we are 0. Alright, and it's, oh, yes, I gotta see which one is which where. So the ground goes over there. Alright. And the other one goes over there. So let's see where we're at here. Come on. 45 ohms. And that is a 4.5. 4.5, what's the voltage on that thing? Oh, come back here. 25 volts it looks like. So, I'm thinking that that is way off. In fact, I'm not even going to bother at measuring the other one. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to see the same thing there. That that one is also bad news. And I forgot to turn my soldering iron on, which is a problem, because I want to use it. Alright, so, so what we're going to do is I'm going to replace, both of those capacitors that are in that preamps part of the circuit, I believe. I think both of these are, well, they're connected to, I think, well, this is the balance control right here, and these are both connected, and of course then they are tied into the volume control. So, so I'm guessing that those two are not healthy. Well, I know they're not healthy. I'm wondering if they're the source of my distortion. I know that transistors really don't like it when their bias is off. When you're dealing with tube stuff, for the most part, if the voltages are anywhere near where they're supposed to be, it'll work. Transistor stuff, not so much. It does not like that. Which is not to say that tube stuff won't distort and do bad things if the voltages are out far enough, because they do. But given the ESR on these things, I'm pretty certain they're dead. So I'm going to replace them, and then we'll come back and see how we're doing. Okay, those two capacitors that are replaced, I put them somewhere. These guys right here. I tested them out of circuit, and they're just as bad as they were in circuit. They're bad. they didn't fix the entire problem. So I was using KLH speakers, which require a pretty decent amp to push them to a decent volume. And I've been thinking about swapping them out for some old Scots that I had kicking around that would be a bit more friendly to tube type amps and low powered amps. This is only 20 watts per channel. So I thought, well, what the heck? So I swapped out the speakers.
Returning to that, more of that sort of...
And you can hear, well, I don't really want to crank it too loud, but
I didn't know you'd voiced commercial.
I could crank this up well above comfortable living or listening volumes, and
Were they? What kind of voice?
And it is plenty good. You can make it distort, but it's a very inexpensive little amp. And it sounds pretty good though.
I don't know.
Let's see. Well,
Very, very popular.
let's see here.
Make a gift. Get a copy.
Stars fall out on you. I just gotta tell you, babe.
Oops.
We just got beat by 7 touchdowns, and
I thought there was one more channel up there, but I don't know. It's there. So changing the capacitors helped a lot. Hooking this up to speakers that it can more easily handle helped a great deal. Now I can crank this thing up to beyond comfortable listening levels, and it sounds pretty decent. Like I said, you can drive it into distortion, but by that time you're cranking it a lot louder than you really want to crank it if you want to listen to it comfortably. So I'm going to call this wrapped up. Well, the only thing I've got to do, which I won't show you, but the 8-track player, actually, let me show you the 8-track player briefly. Again, we got to watch out for copyright strikes, but so the 8-track works. The only thing it doesn't do is light up the number 4. I did a quick test, and when this channel is selected, voltage is being sent to the bulb, but the bulb is not lighting, so it's not a surprise. This is an old unit. Incandescent bulbs, no doubt. Back when this was built, LEDs were not even a thing. So I'll have to look at it and see what they use, and see if I have anything that I can substitute in there. And if I do, I'll swap it out. I may see if I can find something to put in there, order something. Here's the thing. I don't have a lot in this, but I'm not. If I try to sell this, I'm not going to get a lot out of it. I've seen them. Well, I think they may have been unrestored. They were selling for $30. This is actually surprisingly good sounding. You know, I didn't dwell on any stations too long, I hope, because I don't want to get hit with a copyright strike. But I'm hoping that you were able to hear a little bit of the surprising quality coming out of this thing. It's got good bottom end, it's fairly clean, got plenty of volume. You know, if you want something that really cranks, you don't want this. Although it can definitely push volumes that are loud enough to be uncomfortable. If you're one who wants your music really slamming, this isn't for you. It's 20 watts per channel, and you don't want to use low efficiency speakers that really need a higher power amp to drive them. This thing wants more efficient speakers to work properly. But with the right speakers, this thing sounds really nice. I'm truly surprised. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I don't know that it's all that exciting to take the front cover off and get at the bulb and replace the bulb. Okay, I'm inserting this here because I got fooled. I thought the bulb in the 8-track was bad. Turns out it wasn't. Okay, so you should be looking at, you are looking at, a picture with a red arrow pointing at what is a rotary switch. The rotary switch is for the lights in the 8-track player of this radio. The light for the 4th track in the 8-track was not working. So the first thing I did was, and this is a very simple diagram of the rotary switch in the 8-track. Plus voltage comes in here, this little arm swings to the different contacts, and this of course is the common. So this light bulb I thought had burned out when I was wrong. Because what I did was I checked between here and here, and because I traced the wiring from the bulbs, and specifically the bulb number 4, and I wanted to see if voltage was getting from the switch up to the bulb. And when I checked it with my meter, it was. I didn't look at the front of the radio when I was checking the voltage with the meter. I should have, because I'm betting that light was actually working at that time. But when I cycled the rotary switch, and then I checked again, looking on the front to see if the light was on. It was off. So, well, that's strange. So, because I was getting voltage, and it looked like the right voltage between here and here, I decided the bulb was dead. Now, I don't remember, because if you move this if you hit the switch so that it goes from here to here or here to here, this would just be, there would be nothing else on this line, and if I had measured from here to here, it would have told me immediately that the light was fine, the bulb was fine. But what I did do is I unsoldered this wire from here, not being sure. Maybe there was something else funky going on in this switch, which I've run into that before. So, but I did find out that the light was indeed okay, because I didn't want to assume. And actually, I did start to pull the bulb out of the radio, out of the 8-track part, and the thought occurred to me, are you sure this bulb is bad? And I said to myself, I'm not sure. So, that's why I tested to see, and the bulb proved to be fine. So, what I ultimately wound up doing was, I discovered that this switch indeed was not working. And apparently they'd used some kind of grease. I assume it was conductive, but whatever the case was, it had hardened. And even though I put contact cleaner on it, it didn't fix it. So I took it apart. I wound up using some spray degreaser that I've got. Cleaned it all up, hit it again with contact cleaner, put it back together, and it all works fine. So, but here's the puzzling part, and maybe, like I said, maybe it was just Murphy's Law that was causing me issues here. Maybe if I had cycled this through again and checked it again with the meter, maybe there would have been no voltage here. Because here's the thing. If this switch was indeed either open or just high resistance, I shouldn't have seen voltage on the wire going to this bulb. I shouldn't have seen anything. Or it should have been low. And I was actually getting like 6 volts thereabouts. So, and I just played around with a bulb separately with a variable resistor, and I discovered that, and this is what I expected. I was just playing around, and I discovered that there's no way for this to have the full voltage on it with this switch being high resistance. So the only thing I can assume is that this switch was working intermittently, very intermittently, because every other time that I tried it, it wasn't working. If this was acting like a resistance, the voltage would have been low. Playing around with a bulb and a variable resistor, I discovered that by the time the light dimmed to the point where it's not visible, you're winding up with about 100 ohms here. And instead of, well, in my case I was using 8 volts, but you'd wind up with around 3 volts or 2 volts on this line, not 6. So I got faked out. I'm assuming it was just intermittent, and I'm not sure why it stopped being intermittent and just stopped working altogether. I don't know. But anyway, I got fooled, and there are certain things I know I could have done. For instance, I could have, after the contact cleaner didn't work, I could have sprayed some of the degreaser in there, and I bet that would have cleared up the problem, because it didn't take much for that degreaser to remove the grease. It went away rather quickly. But taking it apart was not that big a deal, and now it's clean, and I know it's clean, and it's working. And I threw this down here. This is just an example for those who may not be aware. This is the power supply, a 6-volt power supply. This is the negative side, plus side. You've got a resistor here. With this resistor connected to nothing, if you measure here, you'll get, between here and here, you get 6 volts. Between here and here, you'll get 6 volts. And the reason for that is simple. If no current flows in the circuit, no voltage gets dropped by the resistor. So that means you're going to see the same voltage here as you do here. Once the circuit is complete and actually current is flowing, then that will change, because let's say that this resistor has maybe it's 100 ohms, 200 ohms, or whatever, and is dropping 3 volts across itself. Well, that means that you're going to see 3 volts here and not 6. I got fooled. I still don't know exactly why. My only guess is that this thing worked once when I was testing it. And then decided never to work again, because it didn't until I cleaned it. Very strange. So I hope this has been interesting. I'm really truly surprised by this, because it does have a decent sound. It's cheap. Your tone control on this, if you look at this, it is just this one tone control. And when you're using the tone control, all you're really doing with this is you're killing the high frequencies. When you crank it back to the low, so-called low tone, you really don't enhance the bass at all. All you're doing is trimming back the treble. That tells you that this is a very inexpensive amp. Like I said, about 20 watts per channel is what they claim. And it probably is, based on what I'm hearing. So for what it is, it works pretty well. And somebody was offering this for free at a tag sale, so I grabbed it and thought, well, what the heck, it would be fun to play with. Maybe learn a few things, because I haven't played with transistor stuff in a long time. And so it was interesting. I didn't dig in too much to, as far as pulling transistors and testing them. It works well enough that I don't think there's an issue there. And I don't have a schematic diagram that's easy to read, and I also don't have good, although I was able to find some voltages in that circuit diagram, and the power supply is working properly. The voltages that I was able to check on were good, but I didn't do any in-depth checking of transistors to see if perhaps one of those was a little bit iffy. Like I said, it sounds good now, and I think I'm going to leave it there. It's certainly not worth me spending a lot more time on it. But it was fun to work on, and I'm not unhappy with it. It works a lot better than when I started. The end result made me happy. I think this is for somebody who wants a piece of vintage transistor equipment, and they don't really want to have something that they're cranking at max volume. This would be good.